Right now in Star Citizen, when you find yourself on a long, drawn-out mission or left behind by your ship in the middle of space, you stow your things, you hold backspace, and you start over. According to the current schedule, starting in 3.15, that will be the last option you want to pick. Let's take a look at the two currently scheduled headline features of the next Star Citizen update and why these are actually game changers. Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. And thanks to my newest Patreon members, Mark Steele, Darkchild, Lively, and Ken Garcia. Let's start with medical gameplay. There are several major changes coming to the medical system. The most visible change will be the new tools that can be used for healing. The multi-tool medical attachment and medical gun will both be joining the MedPen in allowing you to heal yourself and others. The multi-tool attachment will add the ability to actually scan for injuries and determine what is wrong with the patient for more efficient healing. The dedicated tool will allow you to mix certain levels of drugs in order to alleviate some of the symptoms that come with said injuries. This brings us to the next major change. Injuries. Currently, in-game, your health is determined by each limb and the damage they've taken. You could die just from getting hit in the hand too many times. It was a very static health system, and we know CIG hates static. Instead of this old simple health pool idea, the team has given every limb its own pool, allowing for variable levels of health, and eventually, as that health is worn away by repetitive damage and neglect, it will turn into an injury. Injuries are new and pretty bad for you. They cannot be healed by these tools we've discussed, but to understand the significance of the injuries, let's talk real quick about death and how you actually won't die anymore. Well, you might a little bit, but virtually every non-glitch related deadly situation will end with you going into a down state with injuries. This down state can allow you to wait it out and see if somebody can come along and heal you up or help you get along, and we'll take into account the inventory changes we'll talk about later in this video. The injuries that you could get in this down state are semi-permanent illnesses that can limit your weapon handling, ladder locomotion, regular locomotion, vehicular control, and other physical activities. They also probably mess with your vision. These injuries don't come in all sizes either. You'll have 3 different levels of injuries, 3 being the lightest and 1 being the heaviest. While a level 3 injury may cause issues, a level 1 injury could stop you from escaping a cave or climbing back into your ship. If you're on your own, you might end up dying simply because you couldn't climb the ramp of your ship. And while I said these injuries are semi-permanent, as you have to find a medical bed to get repaired, they can also be suppressed. As I said before, with the right skills and the correct drugs, you can suppress the debuffs you've received from your injury. As long as you have that medic with you, you will always be able to get back to a bed and heal your character. These first 4 initial drugs and medication, as well as the debuffs associated with the injuries, all tie into the additional work done to the player status system that now takes into account your blood drug level. And if you'll step aside with me for a bit, I'd like to interject. This is where you see choice and skill once again finding its way into the major aspects of this game. Who you decide to include in your group, how much you pay them, how good they are, and what ship you take are all going to decide if you get out alive when you take on a serious injury. And while this could be some laser healing mechanism, it doesn't really matter to me, because the act of healing a person does not seem to be the focus of this system. It is a system that promotes decision making, preparation, or a good team, because in my opinion, this will change the game just as much for medics as it will for everybody who has to depend on them. Now back to the actual point. This down state that you'll enter almost every time you take damage is familiar. It's in a lot of games, but many games aren't really this large, and the idea of waiting for somebody to come get you even just 10 minutes later can make you want to just back out and respawn. But even that will be changing in 3.15. Going forward, You will be able to select a hospital from somewhere throughout the star system that will always bring you back. I am not sure though how easy it will be to, or if you will even be able to, change the location on demand. While medical clinics will always be available on space stations, the only actual respawn locations will be landing zones and major areas like Grimhex. A side note, these hospitals will also be able to heal those Tier 1 injuries we talked about. And while people won't be dying as much because of the down state, this still poses a problem for those who want to avoid dealing with cities, and puts an emphasis on staying alive. And finally, it's good to know that these locations are good for more than just respawning. If you don't have the necessary equipment for getting your crew back on their feet, you can take them to one of these locations and drop them off for a quick service. You don't always have to have a medic, but you probably should. This medical system doesn't actually emphasize death all that much yet outside of the respawn system. In the future, the possibility of permanently losing your character and the life insurance costs that come with this game will be huge deterrents to throwing life away carelessly, an important part of what Star Citizen is going for. For now though, that responsibility will rest on the inventory update. The Physicalized inventory system is probably one of the most important gameplay elements in Star Citizen, period. If every entity in the galaxy had an always accessible global inventory, the entire game would break. Star Citizen would not work. So you can imagine how important it is that CIG gets this right, and why they've actually been very quiet about showing us any design, functionality, or even concepts at all, besides several years ago. Not even a teaser or an Easter egg. The only other times they hold back like this are things like the Planet Tech reveal, the Quantum System, or Squadron 42. So I'm excited, to say the least, to see what they've built for this first iteration on the Physicalized inventory system. And I've been building it up, but not really explaining what it is. I'm sorry about that. This system will take away universal access to all of your items and ships across the game, localizing your assets to locations and ships, and requiring you to consider what and how much of it you are carrying. While this is only a step towards the system that will be in the future, this has some pretty immediate wide-reaching effects on every single mission that requires you to leave a ship, and any profession that requires you to carry something, like mercenaries or medics, miners, or anything else in existence. On the UI side, this is actually a change that has already been well in the making. The personal management app will be removed from the game, and all personal inventory interaction will be conducted in what's called the inner thought system. This is exactly what it sounds like, a consciousness that acts as the lore behind why a bunch of words and items randomly pop up in the world around us. Its design and purpose has changed slightly throughout the years, but it will always remain as a way for us to interact with the world. We've seen the early development of this system over the last couple of years, showing a clear intent on the direction, but I expect something much more fully featured and polished in 3.15, with things like drag and drop functionality and the ability to open multiple inventories on one screen. In addition, we will also get the Asset Manager, something we don't really know much about other than that it will act as the overall tracker of every asset you own in every star system, where they are, and where you need to go to transfer, equip, or retrieve them. The idea of only really having access to what you're carrying ties pretty obviously into the death mechanics we discussed earlier. If you die outside of a landing zone, you or somebody you know will need to get back to your things before they are looted, or they're gone. And while this isn't a big deal during this stage of development, it's just the beginning. These two changes mark the advancement of survival gameplay, the first universal consequence of death, and the biggest boost to Emergent gameplay since 3.0. And they're being joined by both a supporting loot system and new mission types. There's a decent chance something will be delayed, and the execution may not quite live up to the actual features due to instability and bugs, but the movement is there, and features like these continue to push Phase 4 of Star Citizen development forward at a good pace, in my own opinion. This comes months before the cargo refactor that could make cargo hauling a premier option for gameplay yet again, and could serve as the driving force for the in-game economy simulation. This cargo refactor, along with persistent hangars, are two more very big Phase 4 features that we'll likely hear about at CitizenCon and talk more about later this year. But if you'd like to hear my thoughts on it already, you can catch this video in the top corner or down in the video description where me and Super Mac Brother Ryan talk about persistent hangars and what they could mean for the game. This wasn't a deep dive on either of these features like we've done in the past for things like Planet Tech, long distance exploration, or the history of the game. But we'll go into more depth later here and over on my Twitch stream where I play and talk about Star Citizen 3 times every week. I'm very excited for this feature, and while one stands out above the other, the community clearly feels the same. For many, this will be considered the first new gameplay in Star Citizen in years, and for all it will be a big change to the game, and the beginning of Star Citizen, the survival game. If you enjoyed this enough, please consider subscribing to my channel here and my second channel with more weekly content, Space Tomato 2. And if you liked this more than enough, you can support me below on Patreon or PayPal, and check out my new podcast, which discusses more weekly news with Super Mac Brother, Astropub, and other special guests. And remember to go back in this video and look for the secret code to my big giveaway. When this channel reaches 25,000 subscribers, I will be giving away 3 copies of Star Citizen with the Hercules Starlifter, Cutlass Black, and Mustang Alpha. You could win any of these. Just follow the link in the video description and keep an eye out for secret codes across YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I hope you learned something from this video, and I'll catch you later. And thanks to my top supporters TK, Ken Garcia, Valiant15, The Alpaca, Holston Coop, The Huntress, Dasek, Guilty Conscious, Extreme Tuber 7, El Gordo, Jarzi, Niku, Jin, and Bilal El Yassim.